Hi everyone and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Mike.
So Mike, have you ever spent time on a farm?
I was born on a farm.
Really?
No, I was born in a hospital like
Okay.
most people. But I have a great aunt who was actually born on a farm. And we used to go to her farm almost every summer when I was in high school for a few weeks. And she had a few acres and a very traditional old barn. It wasn't a working farm.
Okay.
It was kind of like a house in the country. But she did have fields and she had this lawnmower that you could sit on and drive around. And I would, go out into the field and shoot my bow and arrow at the barn. And,
Okay.
so it was kind of like farm life, but without all the hard work. So, in fact, it was
I see.
kind of perfect. How about you? Have you ever been a farm boy?
For short periods, yes. I have an uncle who was a dairy farmer.
Oh, okay.
And so he had a large amount of land. There's around 100 cows on it, plus a few sheep and a horse and a couple of other animals.
Right.
That was a working farm.
Cool.
So I would go and spend a week or two down there every summer with my brothers and family. And, we'd see what they did and see what the cows were doing. And they had a little motorbike that you could ride around and an electric fence you could touch and get a shot from. And
of course, I remember those.
All the fun stuff like that.
Cool. Did you have to milk the cows or did they have the machines?
They had the machines,
they did.
I've milked a goat once when I was a kid. No pun intended. But that was on a school trip to a working farm where I milked a goat.
It's probably good that your uncle had the machines because if he didn't and you were there, you would be the machine. And it's hard work milking cows.
Oh, yeah. 100 cows would be a lot of work.
Yeah, that would be a full morning's work.
I've spent some time on a farm, and that's related to what we're talking about in today's article, the magical farmhouses of an area of Japan. So let's read through the article and find out all about it.
Reading. The magical farmhouses of Japan's Shirakawa-go. When we think of Japan, it's the big cities that come to mind, or maybe the beautiful beaches of Okinawa. But not many people make it to the western side of the country. Here in the small mountain towns is where you'll find the more traditional side of Japan. Shirakawa-go is one of Japan's most special locations. The town looks like a magical village in a children's story. It's located in a remote river valley and surrounded by mountains. Bright green fields are dotted with traditional farmhouses. Many of them are 250 years old. Their steep roofs are made of straw and other natural crops, which helps the heavy snow slide off during the cold winters. The best time to visit Shirakawa-go is during the winter light-up. The town gets covered in over a meter of snow, and the farmhouses are decorated with bright lights. When you look down from the hills, the farmhouses look like glittering jewels on a soft white blanket. You can spend the night in a farmhouse, but you must make a reservation if you go during this popular event.
So the article begins and says, when we think of Japan, it's the big cities that come to mind, or maybe the beautiful beaches of Okinawa. The phrase come to mind is today's pocket phrase go. So let's take a short break as we find out what this phrase means and how we can use it.
Pocket phrase go! 哇，王妍希冰雪聪明哦，要报仇呢，我点子最多了。一刚好 Coco 来搞我讲哈 ，Coco 就来跟我说，他被人欺负啦，他呢要来找我商讨报仇大计。他就说了 ，Do you have any ideas? Nothing particular comes to mind. 你有没有什么点子啊？我现在呢没有任何想法耶。Come to mind 来到你的心里呢，就表示想到了。 出现在你的脑海之中。你也可以说呢 come to 谁的 mind OK 谁想到了，比方说呢这句 When considering this project some problems come to my mind 当我在思考这个计划的时候呢就想到一些困难的局面了可以呢好好的来思考一下咯。
Welcome back, everyone. So this phrase, come to mind. When something comes to mind, we think of this thing often because some kind of connection to another subject. So if we were talking about New York, maybe you would think of the Statue of Liberty, for example, and we'd say the Statue of Liberty comes to mind. We can also say springs to mind. Something could spring to mind. It just kind of pops in there and, oh, there, I'm thinking about that thing now.
And it's very true when people think of Japan or when they travel to Japan, they probably go to Tokyo or Osaka, or if they're looking for a place that's closer and warmer, the beaches of Okinawa. It's a lovely place to have
Kyoto maybe for
Kyoto
the traditional
as well,
stuff.
one of the bigger cities, but one of the older cities as well. So these are the places that most people would go to if they took 2, 3, 4 trips to Japan, right? These are the most popular destinations. But it says not many people make it to the western side of the country. That's a really good point. It is a little confusing because Japan's kind of at an angle on a map, so the western side is also kind of the northern side.
Yes.
This is the part that's next to the Sea of Japan, that body of water between Japan and Korea, North Korea, South Korea, and parts of northwestern or northeastern China. This would be the western side of the country. Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, these would be the eastern side of the country. So the western side doesn't have a lot of big cities, and that might be why not many people make it to there. When you make it to somewhere, it basically means you go to that place or you are able to go to that place. I can't make it to your party. I can't go to your party because I'm busy this weekend, or because of the heavy rain, we couldn't make it to our destination. We had to stop or we had to turn around. We weren't able to go there. So a lot of people don't make it to the western side of the country simply because most of the popular destinations, as we mentioned, aren't in that area.
However, those people are missing out on some good opportunities, as we'll find out. The article says, here in the small mountain towns is where you'll find the more traditional side of Japan. Now, in this sentence, we've put the clauses in a particular order to place more emphasis on Japan's west coast and its small towns in the mountains. We could say, you'll find the more traditional side of Japan in the small mountain towns, but by changing the order, this stresses the importance of the mountain towns to Japan's traditional side. So, as another example, we could have, you can find many famous paintings in the museum, could be changed to, here in the museum is where you'll find many famous paintings, to kind of make the museum more of the focus of the sentence. In that sentence, we also used a relative clause and where as the kind of pronoun or adverb. Where means the place where. So we could say, here in the small mountain towns is the place where you'll find the more traditional side of Japan. But we want to shorten it, so we just use where. Here's another example of this. Here in this neighborhood is the school where my parents first met. So it looks like going to these small mountain towns over on the western side of Japan, you'll see some more traditional things, parts of Japanese culture that are harder to find in the cities because it's all so modern.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, much smaller towns, much more nature. So if you want to get away from the hustle and the bustle, the sort of active life that you find in Japan's cities, the busy and active life, the western side or the northern side of Japan is a great place to go. And among all the places you could visit on the western side of Japan, we read Shirakawa-go is one of Japan's most special locations. All right, a location is just a place. It's a place that you go. We might use this to talk about a location for a party or a location for a wedding, right? That could be a restaurant or a hotel, or a location for your holiday, right? Where are you going? What hotel are you staying at? What places are you going to visit? So it's just basically a place. And then we learn why it's one of Japan's most special locations.
We find that this place, which is a town, the town looks like a magical village in a children's story. So the word magical can be used here not to mean actual magic, but very enjoyable, exciting, and romantic in a sort of special way that makes you imagine the sort of imaginary villages you would get in a children's story or a fairy story or something like that. I think of a lot of villages in Europe and Britain sort of have that quality of being kind of magical. They look as though they could be, in a Disney movie as the kind of scenery in the background or something like that. Here's another example. The wedding was beautiful and all the guests had a magical evening. So it was an enjoyable, exciting, kind of romantic time.
So it doesn't mean that Harry Potter was there and there were a lot of spells and
Not
curses.
Exactly. No,
it just means really wonderful, special.
Yeah.
And, kind of like you might see in a movie or something like that.
Yes, that's
really,
right.
Really wonderful and unique.
So what else do we learn about the town?
Well, we learn kind of where it is, and this explains why it's kind of magical and also small and fairly quiet. It says it's located in a remote river valley and surrounded by mountains. Yeah, it's interesting. The western side of Japan is sort of like the eastern side of Taiwan. There's mountains right near the water, so that means a lot of the cities and towns are smaller. It's harder to get to, but it's also very beautiful. The landscape and scenery is great. But, yep, it is remote. If something is remote, that basically means it's far from anything else. It'll take you a long trip to get there, and once you're there aren't many places maybe nearby that you can go to, all right? So if we're thinking of a place up in the mountains, an island out in the middle of the ocean, these places would be quite remote. So you're going to travel a long way to get there, and once you're there isn't much around you because it is very remote. Here's our example sentence. French Polynesia is a remote country in the Pacific Ocean. I just learned this. My friend is getting married. He said his wife might want to get married in Tahiti.
Oh,
and I thought, well, that's nice. I like the sound of Tahiti. I've heard of it.
I'm sure I've seen pictures of beautiful beaches and, nice resorts.
Then I kind of looked it up, and it's really far away. It's almost over by South America. It's so far out in the Pacific Ocean. I thought it might be near Fiji, which isn't too far, but it's much further than that. Anyway, so islands like that are very, very remote, as is this town of Shirakawa-go. So it would probably take you several hours by train. Driving there, you'd probably be driving on narrow mountain roads. So, it's not the kind of place you'd go for a quick day trip from your hotel in Tokyo. You'd probably have to go there and stay overnight. But from what we're going to learn, it sounds like it would be worth the trip.
Yeah, we've got a river valley surrounded by mountains, and we also see in the article that bright green fields are dotted with traditional farmhouses. Dot here is being used as a verb, and it's kind of used to mean to kind of speckle, but also it describes locations where there's a few things and they're not in any kind of regular pattern or all grouped together. There's just kind of one here, one there. They're just kind of scattered around a particular area without any real order or concentration. So if we think of an example sentence for London, London is famous for its museums, shopping and entertainment, but it's also dotted with some lovely parks. So that means here and there in the city, in no particular kind of order and not all grouped together, there are lovely parks.
That's right. Speckled, scattered. They're sort of randomly thrown out there, but they're in almost every area. All right. And we also had this word farmhouse. Yeah. If you're going to a country town, you might find farmhouses. These are basically, it would be the main building on a farm. It could be where the farmer lives, but also where the farmer works. Most traditional farms, if we think of a basic farm, would have the farmhouse where the farmer and his family would live, and maybe the barn. And the barn, B-A-R-N, that would be where the animals would live, where the animals are kept. So those would be your basic two buildings in a farm. But of course, the farmer and his family would be in the farmhouse. And these farmhouses have a bit of history.
That's right. We see in the article that many of them are 250 years old.
That's old.
That is pretty old.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there are many places and temples and so on in Japan that are older, but just for a building where people live, there's a lot has happened in 250 years, so you can imagine how different they are.
There you go. But they are very unique, and that could explain why many of them are so old. We get an idea of what they look like in the next sentence. Their steep roofs are made of straw and other natural crops, which helps the heavy snow slide off during the cold winter winters, right? They do get a lot of snow in this part of Japan, so that's something to think about when you design a roof. And in many places, in the Alps, in Europe, in parts of Canada, where in the mountains where they have a lot of snow and skiing areas, a lot of the homes have steep roofs. The roof is the top part of the house, the part that keeps the rain from falling inside into your living room. And something steep is kind of at a high angle. All right, when we think of something that is steep, we might think of trying to walk up a mountain versus walking along a flat road. The mountainside would be very steep. It goes up at a high angle. It takes a lot of effort to push yourself or pull yourself up with your muscles, with your leg muscles. So something steep will be hard to climb, but easy to slide down because gravity, of course, will be pulling you down. And that's the idea here. If they had a flat roof, the heavy snow would build up and it could break through the roof and come crashing down into the house. So the steep roof will hopefully allow the snow to slide off. In Canada, we call these A-frame houses because they basically look like an A. And the two angled parts of the A that go from the top to the bottom, that would be the roof. Let's look at an adjective for this word steep. San Francisco is a city with many steep roads. That's right. If you've ever been there, it's a city that's built on a lot of hills, and some of those hills are quite high. And of course, if you're walking up a hillside that's quite high, it would also be steep.
So in the article, in that sentence, we use the phrase are made of. The roofs are made of straw and other natural crops. So that could be things like wheat, barley, those kinds of things, corn, bamboo, whatever. If something is made of something, and this is using the passive voice form of make, we use it to explain what materials or ingredients were used to make a certain thing. So the chair is made of wood, that kind of thing. Wine is made from grapes. Some people often ask, what is the difference between are made of and be made from kind of thing with the two of and from prepositions? A lot of the time, native speakers will just use them to mean the same thing. So don't worry too much. Strictly, if you make something from something, then the form of it changes. If you make wine from grapes, the grapes are no longer grapes when you've finished. If you make something of something, it's still kind of in its original form. So made of straw means there is still straw on the roofs, and it looks like straw.
All right, so with all this talk of steep roofs and heavy snow and stuff, you might get an idea that wintertime is the time to visit. I'm sure it's lovely during the other times of the year, the other seasons, but yes, winter would be a special time. It says the best time to visit Shirakawa-go is during the winter light up. And from that name and the capital letters, we can sort of learn that this is the name of something. It's the title of a special event.
Yeah, kind of a festival, really.
Interesting.
We see that the town gets covered in over a meter of snow, and the farmhouses are decorated with bright lights. So here we use the word meter, which is 100 centimeters. It's a unit of measurement for height, length, distance, all those kinds of things. So we could say most NBA players are at least 2 meters tall, 200 centimeters tall. Yep, that's pretty tall. I am maybe 168, 169 centimeters, which is 1.69 meters.
Well, I'm sorry to say, Pat, I don't think that NBA career is ever going to really work out.
I know.
I know, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? You and me both. I'm also less than 2 meters tall. We'd be short guys in the NBA.
Yes.
So there you go. Meter of snow. That's quite a lot of snow to fall. I mean, that wouldn't probably fall over one day. That's probably collected over much of the winter. But still, this is some pretty deep snow. You can see why the steep roofs are very, very useful. But they have the winter light up. It's a beautiful time of year to go there. Remember, in the winter, the sun goes down very early, so there's a lot of darkness, which might explain the attraction of these bright lights and the attraction to the tourists. It says, when you look down from the hills, this would be looking down on the town of Shirakawa-go. When you look down from the hills, the farmhouses look like glittering jewels on a soft white blanket. Ooh, that's pretty impressive and absolutely magical. I'm sure if you look up Shirakawa-go winter light up on the internet, you'll see many pictures showing you this, and it really, really sounds kind of like a Miyazaki movie, like one of those wonderful Japanese movies where they make the city and the towns look so, so pretty. And glittering, this word glittering jewels we were talking about, the farmhouses, they looked like glittering jewels. Something glitter is kind of like shining. It's shining like a diamond or a lovely stone would shine, or maybe like the sun shining on a lake or on the ocean waves would kind of sparkle and shine and glitter. So it's kind of like some random patterns of light shining. We also think of stars glittering in a dark night sky or something like that.
Yep, the article continues. You can spend the night in a farmhouse, but you must make a reservation if you go during this popular event.
Probably a lot of people want to go.
Exactly. So you make a reservation. A reservation is an agreement to use something that you make ahead of time. The verb form is reserve, but we often use the verb book as well. To make a booking is the noun. You book something, you reserve something, you make a reservation. So you can make a reservation to stay in a hotel room, occupy and use a table at a restaurant, and all sorts of things like that. So it's basically saying book your farmhouse, make sure you get that farmhouse and spend the night there ahead of time. Don't wait and just show up and hope there is one. You've got to book it like you would a hotel and do it early.
All right. And we also had this word a popular event. An event, this is a noun. It's something basically that happens. It's something often special or interesting or kind of unusual that happens. If you watch the news, on the news they tell you about the daily events of the world. The daily events, what happened in your city, in your country, around the world. We also talk about special events, popular events. A special event for most people would be your birthday. That might be a special event, or a wedding, if you're getting married or someone you know. And a popular event could be something that happens that a lot of people like and go to, a large festival or a big sports event or a sports match or something like that. So it's, something organized that people go to. It might be special and unusual, and certainly a break from your normal day. For example, Peyton wanted to turn her 21st birthday party into a big event. Yeah, certain birthdays like your 21st or your 40th, your 18th, these might be special events, special parties that are a little different from the norm.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of today's article, so let's go now to our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So our question is, does Taiwan have any magical places like Shirakawa-go? Which town do you think is Taiwan's most special?
Good question. But since we're not natives of Taiwan, we live here, but we weren't born here, I'm going to take the most logical and obvious one, and I'm going to say Jiufen.
Good call.
Up in the mountains outside of Taipei City, sort of, I think, northeast of Taipei City is the town of Jiufen. I mentioned Miyazaki.
Yes.
He based a lot of, I think, Spirited Away,
Some of it is
or Howl's Moving Castle.
The steps and the kind of narrow roads that go up the hill.
The way everything's kind of jumbled together. So it's a kind of a magical place, right? It looks really interesting. It's very unique. Tourists will go there when the evening comes and all the lights in the little tea houses light up. It's really very magical.
Yeah, got some nice views. Yeah. I was thinking of Jiufen as well.
Yeah.
So
I got to travel around a bit
do
more.
remember a long time ago when I stayed in Taroko Gorge in Tiansheng,
Yes.
I think the village name is,
Yep.
at night.
Yep.
And it felt very different because basically when they turned the lights off, it was pitch black all around. It was super dark, except for these few little lit up buildings and a bit of a temple. And it did feel kind of very different from anywhere else I'd been in Taiwan, because everywhere else I'd been had been so built up and kind of crowded and busy like the cities. So this tiny little mountain sort of village where you could stay overnight did feel quite nice. And there was the little Aboriginal village you could climb up to not far from there as well, which was sort of, different in a special kind of way. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening to us today. For English for You, my name is Pat.
And I'm Mike.
Talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The magical farmhouses of Japan's Shirakawa-go. When we think of Japan, it's the big cities that come to mind, or maybe the beautiful beaches of Okinawa. But not many people make it to the western side of the country. Here in the small mountain towns, is where you'll find the more traditional side of Japan. Shirakawa-go is one of Japan's most special locations. The town looks like a magical village in a children's story. It's located in a remote river valley and surrounded by mountains. Bright green fields are dotted with traditional farmhouses. Many of them are 250 years old. Their steep roofs are made of straw and other natural crops, which helps the heavy snow slide off during the cold winters. The best time to visit Shirakawa-go is during the winter light-up. The town gets covered in over a meter of snow, and the farmhouses are decorated with bright lights. When you look down from the hills, the farmhouses look like glittering jewels on a soft white blanket. You can spend the night in a farmhouse, but you must make a reservation if you go during this popular event.
Vocabulary Review.
Magical. Opening gifts by the tree and eating special treats made Christmas a magical day for the children. Remote. Arthur rode the bus for hours to get to the remote area where his uncle lived. Dot. This field is extremely beautiful in spring when it is dotted with purple flowers. Steep. I can ride my bike up most hills, but this hill is too steep, so I'll have to push it. Meter. My little boy is growing up. He's 5 years old and 1 meter tall. Event. There will be some events downtown during Chinese New Year, including a concert and some lion dances.
智慧小补帖
Location. Farmhouse. Glittering. Reservation.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net